Hello and welcome to how Salesforce uses dynamic email to drive real pipe. A Salesforce on Salesforce story with the email marketing team. I'm Kelly Miller from the product marketing team, and I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Bradley Robinson. Bradley is a senior director of email marketing for the US, Canada, and Latin America. And today he's going to give us an inside look into Salesforce's email marketing program, including challenges we've faced and how we've solved them, the technology we use, engines we've developed, and best practices for how to get yourself started. So with that, Bradley, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
That's great. Thanks, Kelly. So a little bit about my background. I've actually been using the Marketing Cloud product since 2008, and my team is part of corporate marketing in Salesforce. And so our charter is to use email to drive demand gen, but then we also use email to drive everyone to our events like Dreamforce and the World Tour. Today, we're going to go through all of the demand gen program. But first, I have to remind you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so please only make software purchase decisions based on product that is currently in market. We recently rebuilt our entire email program to use dynamic content, but I want to give you a framework as to how we got there and what was our decision-making behind switching to dynamic. So my team serves as the internal consultancy for email marketing, which means that we have so many internal clients coming to us, and it's a very siloed process. So we might have one product line come and say, can you cut a list for us? We would do manual segmentation on that list, and then we would do manual coding for the HTML, and we would send that off. Salesforce's actual email policy is not to send more than 2 emails a month to a single email address. So what was happening is the next day, I would have another product line come and ask for the same segmentation. And so what was happening is my internal clients were bumping into each other in terms of segmentation. And it was a very, very manual process just to get single emails out the door. And then from the customer standpoint, what was happening is the customers were getting a single stream of consciousness instead of actually getting the richness of seeing different product offerings across the Salesforce ecosystem, because all the products actually work together. And so we wanted to make this really dramatically different and put the choice of the content back in the user's hands. And so that's how we ended up with the dynamic email program. So what we wanted to do is really approach this differently and flip the model on its head and put the content choice really in the hands of the user. So in this particular case, Jade's our customer, and she might have filled out a web form to get for Commerce Cloud, which is that email one. So in the next email, we give her commerce material. 2 weeks pass, and she's gone and she's done other activities and researched Marketing Cloud. So what we're doing now is we're actually following her activity and switching the email offers based on what she's actually doing, all the way through her email journey with Salesforce. So what we ended up building was called the Dynamic Email Engine. It's 100% built on the Marketing Cloud platform, but there's 3 components of it. The first piece is called the Persona Engine, which determines who you are. Then we've got the Content Engine that works out what content you would be interested in. And then the Scoring Engine, which looks at all of the content we might present to you, and it determines what's the highest performing content that we should present to you at that time of send. So let's start with the Persona Engine. So the Persona Engine is truly a new way to do segmentation. So instead of using brute force segmentation, where you would do potentially the director of IT as the title, what we've done is we want to give a bunch of information to Marketing Cloud, look at a bunch of activity, and then let Marketing Cloud determine which is the right product offer to present. So the first thing we do is we look at the web form fills. If you fill out a form on the website, it tells me which your product intent is. So then on the next email send, we actually present you that product because we know that you just filled out that form. The with web form fills is they age over time. And so what we do when the web form fill gets aged is we've actually connected Salesforce Audience Studio's DMP data. All of that web page visit history for that email address is also fed to Marketing Cloud. So we can fall back and see what web pages they've recently been viewing across the site to help determine the next offer we should present in email. From there, we're actually collecting all of the event session scans in real time and feeding them to Marketing Cloud. Because if you got in your car and you drove to a Salesforce event and you scanned into all of these different sessions, we're going to consume that data because that shows the highest product intent in terms of what the story we should tell in the next email send. And then we also collect event registration data. And in many cases, this gives us yet more information about your profile than we would have gotten from a regular web form. So what we do is we feed all of that to Marketing Cloud. We let it process every single day we run this model, and then we assign each email address a product intent. So this is the product based on our modeling that we should present to you as your next email offer. Now, in many cases, there are prospects or sales rep created leads where there isn't a product interest. And so we actually on Marketing Cloud have also developed a lookalike product intent engine. So we look at all email addresses worldwide, regardless of country, and we look for patterns for people with the same job level or job title or company size. And we look at their activity across the Salesforce channels. And we can actually do a best guess or a lookalike to an email address in the US that doesn't have a product intent. And so we ran this model and we ended up augmenting the APAC data by 50% by handing them product intents off of this model. Once we've assigned the product intent, we just add the other attributes which we know on the account. What industry are they in? Are you a customer or prospect? What's your company size? Because the SMB offers for small business are going to be very different than the offers we do for enterprise. So our engine runs every day. We assign the email audience and the audiences are created. So if you're going to do this in your own companies, all you have to do is figure out what is the kind of segmentation you'd like to try out. Is it customer and prospect? Is it people that like green shoes or blue shoes? Our only recommendation is start simple and actually go see what data you have access to. So in our case, most of our data was housed in Sales Cloud. We have come across customers where data is in multiple locations. And so you just have to see how easy it would be for you to marry that data together. So once we've done the email product intent assignment, we pass that email address over to the content engine. So in our email marketing, prospects and customers get a slightly different email template. Prospects get 2 offer emails, where customers get 3 offer emails. And so I can show you what those look like. So in our emails, the offer strategy is offer 1 is always going to map to that primary product intent that Marketing Cloud established based on all of that data we input based on channel activity. Offer 2 is actually aware of what offer 1 is, so it will always be a cross-sell or a product that's interoperable. So now all of a sudden we've got offers that are smart and they're relating to each other because there's knowledge connecting the 2 of them. So we actually have a product mapping table is how we do that. And then the offer 3 is for customer only. So if we want to sell more services or we have a customer only promotion, we can throw that in that offer 3 location. So by doing this with dynamic content, what's happening is every single email that Marketing Cloud is sending is different because we've got a different recipient profile each time. And so that's the power of this in that we are running that email logic every morning, the minutes right before the send, which means that the send with the offers is most relevant to them at the point of send. So from a content creation standpoint, once you figure out your persona, what targeting details do you need or do you have? And we're going to show you some tagging tricks on how to do this. And then how much content do you need to launch? Now, it can be very daunting if you try and get too much content. So for some of the smaller companies that we've worked with, you only need 8 or 10 offers if you're doing 1 email every 2 weeks. That gives you 3 months of content for a single offer email, and that gives you time to get your content machine going. So when we talk about content in a dynamic system, you need a content tagging taxonomy. And all this means is before you start creating content, once the content's created, how are you going to classify it to help Marketing Cloud determine which offer goes with which persona? So in our case, we actually classify by content type, whether it's an ebook, a report, or a white paper. We've got content flavor, which is tell me what product it is. But we also tag content by company size, country, language, and then we do use funnel stage because as you work with dynamic content, you can start to actually offer different content based on funnel stage, depending on how your Sales Cloud is set up. So when it comes to dynamic email content, we need to pause for a moment just to understand there are 3 different ways you can deploy this content in Marketing Cloud. The first way is called inline content. So this is where you have a single standalone HTML file, which is your email, and you might want to change the introductory copy from customer or prospect. In that example, you would put Dear Customer and Dear Prospect into your code, both versions, and you would use a little bit of code to switch between the 2. Challenge with this is that you have to put all the versions of the content into the 1 email. And so for a program the size of what we were doing, that actually didn't work for us. The second way is called an HTML block. So if you've ever seen a demo of Marketing Cloud, you can drag and drop these beautiful HTML blocks to assemble your email. They're very, very simple to use, but each block has the image and the content hard-coded inside that block. And so if one of your products has a logo change or you need to update some content, you need to go searching through the blocks to figure out which block has your content. And so for a program of our size, we couldn't use this version, but we use the third way. So the third way to work with dynamic content in Marketing Cloud is called a data extension. So a data extension is nothing more than a container inside Marketing Cloud that holds all of your content and acts as a content database at the time of email send. So think of it like a Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet where you might keep your content and you would upload that spreadsheet into your data extension. So here's an example of a content data extension that we actually use at Salesforce. And you can see in the second column, we've got our subject line, we've got our headline for the copy, we've got the primary offer copy, the actual body copy is in the data extension, we've got the billboard URLs. So this is truly the content database that will assemble that rendered email. So this is what the emails look like. But when you're working with dynamic content, what you're doing is you're peeling away that design layer and you're marrying a data extension with a template. And so when we look at the email template, you can see it's almost 100% variables. So there's no actual content in this email template, but at the time of send, we take that data extension and all that content marries together to render the email that you see on the screen. So my designer loves this method of managing email templates because when we have to do a layout change, we can go to one template with all the variables as opposed to having to maintain an entire template library. So managing dynamic content can become really complex really quickly. So you want to come up with a way of how you're going to store your content. When we started our program, we actually stored all of our content in Google Sheets, and we quickly outgrew it. And so we actually store all of our content and use Sales Cloud as our content CMS for Marketing Cloud. It also acts as a database, an internal repository for our users, so they can come search for offers that are in market, and they can click and see previews of how that email is rendering for customers. And so what we do, since Sales Cloud is so easy to use and many of our users already knew how to use Sales Cloud, we designed a form where they can just come in, fill out a form, they can tell us their targeting, whether it's sales, service, whether it's for customers or prospects, which company size are they targeting. We also ask them to actually paste in their email copy and headlines here in Sales Cloud. And so by doing that, what it allows us to do is the email is actually rendered inside Sales Cloud via an API connection back to Marketing Cloud. So for the first time, I've got non-technical users pasting their content into Sales Cloud, they submit it for approval to the email team, and we're routing this email across the email team for approval and review while it's being rendered directly from Marketing Cloud each time it's viewed. So then we come to scoring. So scoring engine is the third part of the program. And so what we do is when an offer is submitted to the dynamic engine, we try and get it in front of as many people as we can for the first 30 days. On that 31st day, we assign it a content engagement score, and it's based on open rate, click-through rate, or whether that offer was present during an unsubscribe. And so what happens is that offer, which has now been scored, gets stacked rank against all of the other similar offers so that only the content that is highest performing gets presented to people that haven't seen it. So think of it like the Hunger Games of content, where effective content lives longer and non-effective content basically self-filters out. So the scoring engine generates all sorts of data which we've never had access to. When you're using Marketing Cloud dynamic content, you can actually look at your content at an offer level inside your email instead of an entire email. So for the first time, we can come in and we know that offer type 1 has the highest open rate and the highest click to open rate. So what we would do is we would go back to our content creators and say, make more of this kind of content. The other thing that's beneficial is we can take the data from the Marketing Cloud send table and port it into Einstein Analytics like you see here to have self-service dashboards. And that brings me to things that you should think about when you're looking at reporting. So what metrics do you need to continually report to your stakeholders? Because as an email marketing manager, you send the email and what's the first thing that happens? Your clients come back and say, how did it do? And so we had the exact same problem. So we actually set up some self-service reporting via Einstein Analytics, but you can also use Google Sheets, where we would publish the results on a Google Sheet that was visible by anyone in the company. We would just update that data a few times a week. And do you need to visualize data, or is a simple spreadsheet okay? And then you also want to look at engagement data. You want to make sure that you're giving that data back to your content creators and becoming that consultant and advisor to be part of the content creation process. So in terms of the things that we've just covered, we've got all of these data feeds feeding the Marketing Cloud across multiple channels, not just email. We've got Sales Cloud as our email content CMS, where we're doing the offer submission, review, and approvals. We've got Marketing Cloud, which is sending out one-to-one content emails. We've got almost 90 million permutations of the emails that it can send. And then we've got the dynamic engine itself, which is producing all of that data that's feeding Einstein Analytics to give us closed loop reporting. So let's talk about results. In the first year that we launched this new dynamic email program at Salesforce, we had an 88% increase in lead volume, which was unbelievable. We had a 30% increase in pipe generation, and we have a 65% product lookalike match where we're helping other regions worldwide get new product intents assigned to their email program. So when you're looking at doing this for your company, you want to first step back and say, is dynamic email right for you? And in some cases it is, and I'm not saying it is, but sometimes it's not. But generally what we have found is when people start using dynamic content, the engagement goes up and you actually have just a richer program. Do a content assessment. And when we went through this program, it wasn't the programming on AMP script or on Marketing Cloud that was the hardest part. It was actually getting enough content from enough of the content owners. So that's a really good starting point before we even look at the technology. And then our biggest advice is just to start small. Focus on one tiny audience, do a lot of A/B testing, and just see if it increases your performance. So with that, I'll pass it back to Kelly.
Such a great program, Bradley. Really appreciate you sharing the overview of that. I wanted to dive into a couple questions that I was jotting down as we were going. So the first one, I think a lot of the audience will probably have this, is would you be able to do this program with your existing Sales Cloud instance?
So that's a good question. So yes, you can, because all we did was create what's called a new object inside Sales Cloud. And a new object is one of those tabs across the top. So as long as you have an administrator that can help you do this setup, you actually can use your existing Sales Cloud installation.
Fantastic. Okay, second question. With an email system so complex, how do you conduct your testing? I know that that is super top of mind for marketers today.
So here's a trick that we do when you're testing dynamic content. If you paste a bunch of variables at the top of your email, it will actually print the persona that you were targeting, what offer 1 was supposed to be and what offer 2 were supposed to be. And we're showing it here on screen. You can see in green, this email was targeted to a customer. Offer 1 was supposed to be App Cloud. Offer 2 was supposed to be App Cloud. But because the engine is running in the background, you never know. So this is a way to visualize what's going on in the engine during your QA testing.
Oh, I love it. Visualizations is also always great. I mean, I'm a marketer, so the more that I can see things, the better. Another thing that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to just double click into is the massive scale. I think you said 90 million at which you send emails using this system. How many designers do you have to help design those emails?
So believe it or not, on my team, we have 1 designer.
That's crazy. 1 designer? So my follow-up question to that then would be, how do you do all this with just 1 designer?
So if you have limited design resources, we came up with a framework to actually help our creative partners. So in this example, we have 2 templates for email marketing. But what we were doing, we were really cognizant about making it as simple as possible from a design standpoint. So the layouts are very similar. And what we did is we actually made sure that the mobile version had the same image. We made sure that offer 2 had the same image. And then we have the billboard on the left-hand side as one version. And then we have a billboard on the right-hand side. So by creating 1 additional image, we have 2 fully functional email templates, which means the designer only had to build this once in terms of coding. And we have 2 templates that we can go to market with. So for any future offers that are created, the designers only have to make 4 images.
I'm sure your designer really appreciates that.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I love it too, because, so many people have small teams and are always asking us, right? I only have a small team. What do I do? So I think that's a fantastic insight. Well, thank you so much, Bradley. I think that concludes all of my questions today. Really appreciate you taking the time. This was awesome.
Well, and thank you for having me.